Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here. I watched the film from the back room, and I have to share with you, when Jimmy Wales came into my office, I was the editor of PC Magazine, and he said, we've got this great idea. We're going to have an encyclopedia, but nobody's going to write it, but everybody's going to write it. I called my boss. I said, you got to come in. I got this nut in my office who thinks that we're all going to chip in and write an encyclopedia. And so just goes to show you the digital revolution never ceases to amaze and to perplex. I drove up from New York yesterday. Well, actually, my husband drove, and I made a list of what I did in the car. I connected to the internet using my mobile hotspot. When my mobile hotspot didn't work, I spent 15 minutes on the phone with my provider asking, could they reorient the towers for me? I had 3 business calls that involved my livelihood. I worried about my battery life, so halfway through the trip, we got out, we put in our 4-prong big converter, and I plugged my computer in and really punched things up. We navigated with our GPS, so we really could have been anywhere. It didn't really matter where we were. And about halfway, when we got to the Vermont border, I just said, oh my God, this is so pretty. And I have not looked up yet. That is going to get me to the idea that the digital revolution, yes, it keeps giving, but it keeps taking too. And it takes a lot from our precious memories. So I want to just give you an idea of the ferocity, and I am not a historian, but the ferocity of who do we blame for all this? Gordon Moore, one of the co-founders of Intel, said something a while ago now that has held true, and that's that transistors, the number of transistors on a chip would double. Actually, first he said every year, and they modified it to every 2 years. But the idea is that each time transistors are added to the chip, they go faster and faster and can store more knowledge and more knowledge. And that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. And the byproduct of that is an internet that has allowed us to do many of the things that we'll be talking about. I want to focus on 5 of-the-moment things that I think that you need to understand as we approach, and I'm going to call it step 2 of the digital revolution. Social networking, the quantified self, how we measure the stuff about us. We are the new computers, if you hadn't heard. It's us. We will be measuring our inputs and outputs. The human interface, more natural from pointing to gesturing, big data and what that means, and this notion of the Internet of Things, where my car is talking to your oven regularly. So if I had to say, here's digital revolution 1, and here's digital revolution 2, this is what I'm going to say. Revolution 1, it was about the internet and searching. What you're seeing now is a move away from searching, and people actually search less often, but use apps to get a personalized search or a personalized convenience. We've moved from the desktop, which is incredibly revolutionary, to the thing in our pocket, as you saw in the film, that has more transistors than anything on our desktop ever had. We've moved from brands that would target us. You got on the internet, and all of a sudden Toyota and Ford and Coke would be in your face in the banner ads, to you are the brand. We've got kids who are making their livelihoods and their statements about who they are and what they are, and they are their brands on the internet. We went from sitting and typing as input to, I'll show you a variety of new input devices. And we went from mass production, every Dell computer looked the same and every IBM computer looked the same, to a very personalized feeling about technology. I run conferences and events, and 2 weeks ago in New York, I had a high-tech fashion show. It was amazing. I mean, so tech will continue to define your personal style. And if you've seen any of the 3D printing that's just looming in the horizon, this idea like, I'm having a dinner party next week, I would like red dishes to serve my guests on. I think I'll just make a set, send them to my 3D printer, and have them delivered. So personal manufacturing is going to get really exciting in the near future. So what does this mean for you, for your children, for your grandchildren? Well, it really redefines what life's work is, I think, and it really means you can't train for it. If you studied C programming in college, you better believe that C programming is not going to be what you need to get through life. And so this process of ongoing, lifelong learning, I understand here at Dartmouth there is no online, massively online MOOC component to the course, but it's happening rapidly everywhere around the world, that you can take a course from the best professor in the world on a given subject in the comfort of your own bed, in your pajamas, for credit or not for credit, depending on how you want that. And that is going to also just revolutionize how we feel about education, about lifelong education, about the premium services. I know the slide in the film said broadcast networks would actually provide commercial free. We have raised a generation, like it or not, that believes everything is free. They haven't paid for their music. They're not going to pay for their music. They're not going to pay for their apps. And right now, Madison Avenue and advertising is subsidizing that, but that may change or not. So there are definitely premium services change, meaning there's a digital divide. And the people who will be smart in this future, I believe, are the ones that can not get distracted, that can ferret out the information that they need the moment they need it, and create new great solutions based on basically the entire knowledge of the world out there. So it really is going to change pretty much everything about our lives. So I'm going to start talking about social networks because it is really important. We all saw the movie. That person drinking a beer, I shouldn't say this in front of the TV cameras, that person drinking a beer on the lower frame is my son. And he's drinking it underwater, and he thought that was incredibly cool. So cool that he put it on the cover of his Facebook page. And I said, you know, dear, when you're looking for a job, this is not like a great thing. And he turned to me and he said, I don't want to live a double life like you did. I want my life to be authentic and transparent. And if they don't like me for who I am, well, then I don't want that job. I'm like, oh, okay. Right. And to this day, that is, he's probably going to kill me. That is his picture, but that is very much of the moment. How many of you today tweeted or Facebooked or LinkedIn out the fact that you would be here? So I did, and I actually got some nice notes from friends who I sort of kind of know, who said stop by afterwards. But that's what's happening. The world is shrinking because of these networks. There is an openness and transparency, and these relationships that we're forming are not bound by any of the traditional things. At the same time, this is incredibly seductive and addictive, and I'm sure you all know people who have confused their online lives and their real lives and not set the boundaries between each. And I think you've seen a generation of younger kids that really have no boundaries between each. It's both together at the same time. When you think about it, and this was the original Facebook that Mark Zuckerberg created while he was at Harvard, it was really an elitist thing. We had AOL, Prodigy, CompuServe, and everybody was invited. And here was this elitist thing just for college students, and you had to have a .edu address to be on Facebook. Well, fast forward to today's Facebook, and it really is what I'm going to call a platform. It's got everything. You can post videos, you can create events, you can talk about the news. The rules for Facebook living are probably as complicated as any other government, any other place, in terms of what you can do and who your friends are and what permissions you grant them. And Facebook is an enabling platform for everything from game playing to movie watching to club making. So it's really become a robust place. Their next frontier, of course, is mobile, because Facebook was born of the desktop revolution era. And so they're working very hard to create the mobile tool so that Facebook is always with you all the time. So I'm going to take you a little past Facebook. So we've got Facebook, and we'll talk about Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. You're saying, why would anybody need so many social networks? How many friends can you have? And there's really an evolving culture of why some networks are better suited and different than others. And I would say, in general, if you've been on Pinterest, or if you haven't, go there. This is sort of like going back to hieroglyphics. We speak in words, and in graphics. We put up images, and we caption them. Advertisers have recognized the power. Whole brands of individuals who are curators and arbiters of good taste will make their statement on Pinterest, a graphical language that takes all of 10 seconds to put together, but could take years to think about and curate to your likings. My favorite Pinterest post that I have is one of all of the deaths in Paris. It's just everybody who's dead, Sartre, the catacombs, the whole deal. And it's every day, I'm amazed at how many people share and like my Pinterest. So I'm going to compare what we call the popular social networks right now. You've got Facebook. To me, in a nutshell, without all the nuances, Facebook's your personal place. And it could be personal for your kindergarten teacher, to your long-lost friend, to your current friends. But it's personal, and by and large, you have some contact with them. And there are limits and there are things you can do. Twitter, it's real time. It's a way to get a sense of the entire world, or at least the world that you share in your Twittersphere, very, very quickly. And it really is about thought leadership. People, and if you don't think 140 characters is hard to master, I suggest that you go home and try and say something intelligent in 140 characters. It's an art form like haiku. It's really kind of incredible to distill your thoughts, be clever, add insight in 140 characters. And the people who do it are really good, and they really are thought leaders with hundreds of thousands of followers. LinkedIn, another popular social network, is really for your professional life. And it's really about who am I connected to, and why should they care and I care? And it really is the who knows who that's been around forever, embodied in technical form. And then Google+, if you've been on it at all, Google+ is amazing. It's the entire Google world, videos, photos, your location, your hobbies, your interests, but it's a little overwhelming. On Google+, you create circles of friends. So you can be my New Hampshire friends, and then I've got my magazine friends, I've got my television friends, and I can very selectively target my comments instead of one big bunch of unsegregated friends, which is what most of the other networks do. So that kind of gives you an idea that these things are really different. This was not me. This is a great journalist, and I don't even know who it is. I can't attribute it. So he said, let's look at pee through the social networks. And I just have to read this. If you're on Twitter, I need to pee. If you're on Facebook, I peed. Are you happy for me? If you're on Foursquare, which is location specific, it said, this is where I pee, or where do I go pee? If you're on Quora, which is a new knowledge shared, where you can ask questions of your peers, it's why am I peeing? And if you look at YouTube, it's like, look, I'm peeing. And on LinkedIn, you brag about how good you are at it. So I have to say, I take no credit for that. It comes from, it's just hanging around the internet, but I thought it was just brilliant because these are fine nuances, and I've got to tell you, the people who master these nuances will be the masters of the digital age. So how does a normal person go through this stuff in a normal day when it's not your job, but it's an adjunct to your job? I use something called Hootsuite. Hootsuite looks at all my social networks. I can look at who has mentioned me, who I've mentioned, what I'm going to say on Facebook, and I can actually say different things on different networks, so it becomes my dashboard. And not to belittle this is a powerful business tool, probably the most powerful business tool I've ever seen, and I've been through a lot of incarnations of this So you can selectively decide what you're going to post where, and you can selectively manage your dashboard. The most important thing you can learn is not to live on it, but to, I don't understand why somebody doesn't build an app that says, okay, an hour's up, you can look at it again. Because it's very, very seductive to have that there. Also, if you are a Facebook user, go home and go to Wolfram Alpha, W-O-L-F-R-A-M Alpha. Wolfram's mathematician, and as a proof of concept for his search engine, which is based on mathematical algorithms rather than indices, he has a little app that lets you look at your Facebook life in great detail. What sex are your friends? How old are your friends? Where do they live? Where did they go to school? What are their politics? What are their favorite movies? And it gives you this snapshot of information about you that may, in fact, surprise you and may also provide a good filter of your Facebook usage. And I think more tools like this are going to be invented that will help us look at the usage of our digital habits and help us get a better grip and little reality check. Where are we going next? And probably if you have children and grandchildren, they've kind of told you, Facebook's sort of like the bar. It's getting a little tired and the parents are coming in, so we're going to go somewhere else. And next up is video. This is an incredibly graphic and speed-driven youth audience, and you can send short 6-second videos that loop continuously using Snapchat. And that is, using Vine, I'm sorry. Vine is getting really popular. Video will be their new sharing photos. What comes after video? Well, I think it's this impermanence, and this is where you're seeing Snapchat. I can take a photo or video, and I can set a timer that says, destroy this after 5 seconds, and send it to you, and then there's no record. Needless to say, when it first came out, sexting was a very heavily used feature. You know, that I can send a naked photo to you now, my parents will never know, or my boyfriend will never know, or Anthony Weiner will never know, or whoever, but it will go away, and there is no permanent record. So it's as if these other social media were not impermanent enough, more impermanence is on the way. The next phenomena all of this social networking is bringing in that's worth thinking about is crowdsourcing. And that's the idea that the wisdom of the crowds will surface. I find this notion terrible because I'm always never quite sure how smart the crowd really is. But you're dealing with a generation that actually believes in the crowd very much. They believe what their friends think, they care what their parents think, they care what everybody thinks. And so you have things like Kickstarter. Everybody familiar with Kickstarter? Where you can suggest you can get funded for an invention of yours by listing it and by offering some small reward. I'll give you a product, I'll give you a t-shirt, I'll put your name in the credits. You can set up different price structures, and people are getting millions of dollars towards funding all sorts of creative projects through Kickstarter and Indiegogo, probably the two biggest crowdsourced funding. Even Microsoft just announced a crowdsourced for your children who can't afford computers. They just get up there and they say, I'd like a computer, and you can all get up there and donate. So crowdsourcing, this idea of coming together around something, supporting the idea, is going to be a major part of social networking. And the downside of that is that the wisdom of the crowds can sometimes force an individual not to say what they really feel. And if you are talking to your kids at all, I say to mine, like, please, like, don't believe, you know, not everybody has to love every decision you make. And that's going to be increasingly important. So as I move you from social networking, that's sort of step one. Internet of Things is step two. And the Internet of Things, you're going to hear a lot about it this year, and it really just means everything from your toothbrush to your radio to your car, will have internet capability. Why? Because they came up with a new platform for the internet, version 6, about a year ago, that gave it tons more addressable space. You know, we're running out of addresses, and now that we have all this addressable space, it's pretty easy to have my toothbrush call your car and have a chat. And I'll show you exactly what that means. And you've seen lots of this. You've seen the Nest thermometer that lets you regulate your house temperature, but it's bi-directional. It learns about your preferences. You can also call it up on your mobile phone and say, hey, I'm coming home now, turn on that air conditioner. There are heating systems. There's finding things, finding your keys, finding your glasses. Everything in your house can be tagged so it's findable. And you know, everything from the sublime to the absolutely stupid, the pet trackers, and there are a lot of humorous products that you'll see come to market based on the idea of finding and tracking. And then some kind of not so humorous. When you go to the parks at Disneyland now, the kids get a bracelet. The bracelets have a geolocator chip. There's no hiding and there's no getting lost. They can be found anytime they just swipe Mickey there. That combines the Internet of Things and geolocation. So let's talk about today. This whole Internet of Things is used to track mostly, to track and to find, to track and to find. And the pill bottle's a great example. Half the people who take medications suffer because they're not compliant with taking their medications. Talking pill bottles, pill caps that are coming out of the pharmacy now that will actually, say, you took one of these an hour ago when you opened the cap. Or worse still, keep the cap locked and report it to the drugstore if you try and take 2 instead of 1. So that's today's internet. That's things talking. Next up are things actually not just tracking and finding, but talking to each other. Last year, we did an event in Las Vegas, and we had the Google car drive-in from California by itself, well, with some poor guy who had to sit with it, drive in the entire way and made a film on the way of this driverless car. And what's on top is called LiDAR, which is a combination of motion sensors and radar that navigates the car. So you're going to see the Internet of Things will start with these simple trackers and then move towards all of our devices talking to each other. Bear that in mind as we start to move towards what the industry is now calling the quantified self, the idea that you are the computer and your body is a set of inputs and outputs just like any other machine, and the more you know about it, the better off you'll be. Or are you the most narcissistic people in the world? Flip side of that. So there's a, I look at this a lot, and this slide comes from somebody else, but it's how much is this tracking going to change behavior? And I really wondered. But if self-tracking, if 40% of people who have medical issues that contribute to premature death are being affected because of their behaviors, well, then tracking can really help. And we're talking about things like body sensors, pedometers, heart pressure monitors, blood cuff monitors. So we're talking about you being the computer in a series of devices that will tweak and tune your performance the same way you might have done to your computer. So just like we sort of walked through the steps. We've got the social networks. We're going to have this wearable technology. New status symbol for this year. I guarantee if you don't go to the cocktail party without your Jawbone or your Fitbit or your Strive, people will be talking about you. So you've got your wearable, you've got your smartphone that goes up to the cloud and sends the information from the wearable. Think of the wearable, just a bunch of sensors with IP addresses, just a bunch of sensors sensing all sorts of stuff about you and pushing that information to your phone, who's then pushing it up to the internet. That's what's happening right now. And I want you to think about this, because based on that, we're going to be wearing these things. You've got your smartwatch, you've got your Google Glass. There's a really clever rule of screens, that the smaller the screen is, the more you look at it. And the further away the screen is, the longer you look at it. And I think that's what's going to happen. We're seeing it happen with our laptops already. When you settle down, you sit down with your laptop computer or with your iPad, but when you want a quick look, you're going to go back to I mean, I don't know how you used to feel, but I grew up where everybody was looking at their watch every time I talked. Then they stopped looking at their watches and they started looking at their phones. This year, they're going to start looking at their watches again, because their watch will be their smartphone. And so you'll see a lot of Dick Tracy smartphones by this Christmas. So coupled with this quantified self is this idea of data. And I think we alluded, we are an incredibly scientific-minded group. We have a saying that in God we trust, everybody else bring your data. My worry for this next generation is that they're so data-driven that something major gets lost, whether it's creativity, intuition, data we all know. I mean, Mark Twain said it, right? Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Data can give you some false things, especially if you're looking at the wrong data. And that's where we are in the technology revolution today. And our data is only as good as what we choose to look at. And this comes really important with this whole quantified self. There's a product just coming to market. Actually, it was started on Kickstarter. You put it on your head, and it's got like it just gives you a reading of your blood pressure, body temperature, blood oximetry, glucose levels, and it's all there for $129. You hold it up to your head. The information is up into the cloud. You can share it with your doctor. You can keep it to yourself. You can share it with your friends and have a race over who's got the best blood pressure. And this is here now. It ships in about a month. And so you're going to have incredible control about the information that's in your bodies. Here's another one. You think it was bad enough that we're wearing it on our wrist. Well, next year at this time, people are going to wear it on their socks. Those socks have a mesh that conducts an electronic signal. That little ankle bracelet has the sensors. It's all sending it to the phone, and up your data is being monitored. How many steps you took, how many calories you're burning, and shareable with whoever you would like to share it with. Look over time at your improvement. It'll tell you if you pronate when you run. So it's really quite advanced. But amazingly, none of this stuff is new. It's all technology that has existed. There's nothing revolutionary here. It's sort of the combination of these things. For the life bloggers, that's a video camera. It blogs your whole life. What more could you want? You don't even have to turn it on. If you're wearing it, it senses your body and it knows to start recording. And that's available now as well. So the same idea, the sensor, the cloud, all of those pieces will repeat itself for the short-term future. And it's not like they're not making money. I mean, you have an idea, you put it up on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, you tell people that you want an investment, and there you go. Some of the numbers, Happy Fork is actually a fork that controls the speed of your eating. It's meant to be a weight loss tool, and if it gives you a little gentle stimulation, like a shock, if you eat too quickly. Well, that thing was the most popular thing at the Consumer Electronics Show last year and raised all sorts of money. So this idea of wearable technology is the next wave, and flexible. Flexible is the new. As they come up with new materials and that are good conductors, you're going to start to see flexible things. This one will be the watch. It's also available on Kickstarter. We'll give you your instant messages, your text messages, your emails, all on your Dick Tracy wrist, ultimately. And these things, one of the things about technology is the hardware gets better as the software gets better, because you keep updating. So this will probably be your video conferencing wrist phone in the pretty near future. So now I've told you, like, you can collect all this data about your own body. Cool. What's happening behind that is what we call big data. So I'm collecting my data on my jawbone, you're collecting yours, and all of a sudden they have hundreds of thousands of people's data to look at. And they can say, whoa, and they actually changed the product recently. They put in a backlit thing because they realized the times that people were doing their most intense exercise was at dusk. So they looked at the data and said, oh, people are running at night, we better make this easier to see. And they changed their product design because of big data. Big data is looking at pockets where people don't exercise that much. It's looking at pockets where people are subject to asthma or to heart disease or to diabetes and start to correlate these things. So that every time you wear one of these wearables or offer information to the cloud and you get some information out of it, the important thing to do is to realize that they're getting some information out of it too, whether it's a driving system, like the Waze system, which tells you what the traffic is like out of town because it's taking the big data behind everybody's drive and giving you back information, or whether it's how many steps the average runner makes a day. This is going to be huge in disease management, in solving many of our problems, but it can also be very invasive as well. Okay, so now you got your quantifiables, you got your big data. Now we're going to talk about how do you talk to these machines? Because we talk to them more and more, and they pretty much are just extensions of ourselves. This was the big breakthrough, you know, that you could take a finger. It was like the ET moment in technology. You could take a finger and use it as a navigation device. Because all of a sudden, you weren't moving a mouse over here and hoping something would happen over there. That's a level of abstraction that's really hard. But pointing your finger, touching, dragging, pulling, we understood this. And by incorporating that into the user interfaces, a 2-year-old or a 92-year-old can use this technology just as easily and just as naturally. So the other big thing you'll see is natural user interfaces. Whoa, okay. Gestures. Am I done? I'm done. Okay, so you're going to see gestures. You can move this. I'm going to put these up online. You're going to see multi-touch. You're going to see people measuring your brain waves and your level of engagement through sensors. You're going to see new uses for your camera's photo and scanner. Augmented reality that gives you more information about where you are. At the center of it today is your phone. You use it about 150 times a day. Tomorrow, it's your body. And I'm going to quit there, but you can look at the near future as this weren't enough. Shortly, including the new swallowable pills that, A, make sure you're taking your medicine, which is a personalized cocktail, and B, can explore your insides. Genetic sequencing, which is the next step. And I think that this is both terrifying and engaging, and whether it's going to ask you the question of whether you're going to be a technological optimist or pessimist. And I think as a technological optimist, you'll win more because this stuff can be really good and eradicate so many of our problems if we use it wisely. If we don't, we're in big trouble. So thank you.